Two true stories about people who believe they died in an alternate reality and ended up in ours. Not a near-death experience, but a dimension switch. These stories are both true, though names and details have been changed. This is Glitch in the Matrix. Audrey is married to someone who believes he died in another reality. Now, he says her eyes are a different color. He says his mother's voice is different, and his taste in shoes, he's really into sneakers, has changed a lot. Audrey's husband Billy died a little over a year ago. Or so he thinks. We suspect he had a seizure, fell on the bed face down, and suffocated himself. Audrey found him 5 hours later, unresponsive and septic. They lived in an upstairs apartment, so they had to remove him in a body bag. He spent 3 days in a coma, no meaningful brain activity, none of his organs functioning, not breathing on his own. On the 3rd day, the doctors decided it was best to pull his plug, that he wouldn't wake up, and if he did, he would be a vegetable. A couple of hours before Audrey was due at the hospital for the plug pulling, her husband just woke up. And woke up without any long-term effects. His mind was all there. His organs recovered. He only needed a month of dialysis. The interesting part, besides him being a medical anomaly, is that he thought Audrey was there the whole time. But because it was during COVID, she was not even allowed in the ICU while he was in a coma. Her husband Billy says he clearly remembers a woman running her fingers through his hair and telling him it's time to wake up, which would have been impossible because he had this brainwave cap on and no one could touch his hair. Billy said that just that little memory of being out felt like the safest place, felt like being held in the hands of the universe. And the only reason he could fight through this comfort was he thought that Audrey was there trying to wake him. Ahmed also thinks he died and switched into an alternate reality. Last summer, Ahmed was driving on the freeway. He was in a car by himself, and it was a clear, sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. There was a semi about 50 feet ahead of him, and a red car a couple of car lengths behind him. He looked down for a split second to adjust the volume on the stereo. And when he looked up, a thick fog had rolled in, and the semi in front of him was on its side, sliding towards him fast. He knew he was about to die with absolute certainty. He felt panic, but also a crushing devastation that he wasn't going to be there to see his daughter grow up. He had never felt anything like that before or since. Overwhelming sadness and the knowledge that this was the end, and grief because he wasn't ready. He opened his mouth to gasp or scream or something, and then he remembers that he must have just blinked, just in that moment, because suddenly the day was sunny again, and the semi was upright and driving normally, still about 50 feet ahead of him, and the red car was still several car lengths behind him. Ahmed was shook. He had to pull over on the freeway to have a meltdown because seconds before, he'd been about to die. He just sat in the car for a few minutes in shock. He knew what he'd experienced. He was 100% sober, and he'd never hallucinated. He was a very sensible, skeptical person, but he could not explain what happened that day. Premonition? Did he die in an alternate universe? Has anyone else experienced something like this? Never mind people on the street or distant stars. You don't even have proof that you exist, at least as the person you imagine. We think the past has happened because we have memories and because of records like photos and books. But what if all that is just freshly written code? What if your life was turned on the last time you blinked your eyes? The disturbing thing is that this is impossible to prove or disprove.